Rams-Seahawks, and remembering the great Jack Snow. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Hang on, boss. Hang on.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the September 6, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help, got questions, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourselves some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. Okay, so yeah, we're going to touch base on Rams-Seahawks. We're going to touch base on Lions-Chiefs tomorrow night, and we're going to remember some Ram history with Jack Snow, Roger Brown, and even a little bit of Pat Studstill. Not much, but we're going to touch on some other things before we get there. And first, I kind of want to speak to Jets DB DJ Reed. Now, DJ Reed the other day, I think it was yesterday, made the statement that the Jets defense could be as good as the 1985 Chicago Bears. And I agree, that Bears defense was great. And I feel bad for DJ Reed because the first moment Tua, Josh Allen, or even Mac Jones torches them for a touchdown pass, they're just going to be ripping him up one side down the other. But I thought, you know what? Maybe we should take a look. We're still talking Ram talk here, but I love doing the NFL. And so I will stay in my lane, but I'm talking NFL, so it is my lane. So let's look at who the Bears feasted on en route to their 18-1 season in 1985. 15-1 regular, 3 playoff wins, including the Super Bowl. And I agree, the Bears defense was great. But let's see who the quarterbacks were they faced. They faced Steve DeBerg with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice. They faced Tony Eason early in the year with the New England Patriots. They faced Tommy Kramer twice. Now, a lot of people didn't like Tommy Kramer. I did. We know he had a drinking problem. Tommy Kramer, in the first matchup, I think it was a Sunday night game or a Monday night game, threw for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that was the game where Jim McMahon didn't play the first half, and they subbed him in the third quarter. He threw 3 touchdown passes and rallied the Bears. It might have been his best passing performance as a pro, or at least on that Super Bowl team. But they faced DeBerg twice, Tony Eason once, Tommy Kramer twice. They faced a 36-year-old Joe Theismann who was on his way out. They faced Randy White, Lynn Dickey, and Jim Zorn with the Packers. Eric Hipple twice with the Detroit Lions. They faced Gary Hogeboom and an aging Danny White in Dallas. David Archer in Atlanta. Mike Pagel in Indianapolis, and pedestrian Ken O'Brien at Shea, or not Shea, at the Meadowlands with the Jets. To be fair, they did beat Joe Montana and the defending champ San Francisco 49ers. Okay, we'll give them that one. But they, of course, lost to Dan Marino in that classic Monday night game. And I just think when you look at those quarterbacks, 1, 2, 3, 8 of them here are something like journeyman quarterbacks at best. Randy Wright, Gary Hogeboom, Eric Hipple, David Archer, Mike Pagel. I like Steve DeBerg, but we know what he was. Ken O'Brien was a starter, for most of his career, but he didn't do anything. Not really. Tommy Kramer was solid. Danny White was solid, but really that's hardly the scourge of the earth, right? In the playoffs, they faced Phil Simms. Okay, I'm not a big Phil Simms guy, but okay. And, of course, they faced Dieter Brock. Then they faced Eason and Grogan again in the Super Bowl. They didn't face a developing Boomer Esiason. And, hey, thank you, somebody, for clicking on live. They didn't face a developing Boomer Esiason. They didn't face a still productive Dan Fouts. And they certainly didn't face John Elway. So, apples and oranges. It's hard to say, who was better, but you know what? You put them against a couple of better quarterbacks, and maybe that 85 Bears defense isn't exactly what we're talking about today. Actually, while I think that Bears defense was great, the defense that I thought was more complete was the 2000 Ravens, and I mean, they won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer. I mean, that's the mic drop, right? But anyway, I just want to have DJ Reed's back when everyone starts chewing that kid up because he shouldn't have made the mention. But let's remember who the Bears faced in '85. I thought it was fair to share that. I thought it was interesting when I woke up today. I was making notes for the show that both the 49ers and Chiefs have their best defensive players holding out, and both their all-pro tight ends injured heading into week 1. But then news broke a little while after that the 49ers got their deal done with Bosa. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. 5 years, 170 rocks, 122 and a half of it guaranteed. He's making 34 rocks per year as an edge rusher, and he turns 26 this season. Currently, Frisco has something like $2 million in cap space. And then someone mentioned it, and I went and I looked it up. They mentioned it from Over the Cap. I went to Spot Track. They're both pretty good. I know Over the Cap I think people go to more, but I went to Spot Track. And I did. I looked at who their highest paid players are for the 49ers and what their ages are going to be going into next year, right? So you got Bosa gobbling up a huge chunk of the money here, right? Next year, these are the players in 2024 that they're going to be paying. Brandon Ayuk will be turning 26, and you're going to be paying him 14 rocks. He becomes a free agent in 2025. Eric Armstead is going to be 31. You're going to be paying him 26 rocks. And when I say rocks, I mean millions. And he's an unrestricted free agent in 2025. Javon Hargrave is only making 15 this year, but in 25, 26, and he was their big free agent sign from Philly. He's 32. He's going to be 32 next year. And you're paying him 26 and 28. You're paying Javon Hargrave Chris Jones money. I mean, what Chris Jones is looking for, or a little bit more. Christian McCaffrey will be 28 next year, and he's making 14 rocks. In 2025, he's scheduled to make 14 rocks. Charvarius Ward will be 29 next year, and they're going to be paying him close to 18 rocks for a safety. Remember, the Rams won a Super Bowl with Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott, and a rewired and retooled Eric Weddle. And I don't think the Rams in 2 seasons combined paid that much for their safeties. They're paying Charvarius Ward 17.9, close to 18 rocks. He's going to be 29 next year. George Kittle's going to be 31 next year, and they're paying him 19.8, and in 2025, 17.2. Next year, they're paying Deebo Samuel, who'll be 28, 28.5, and then in 2025, 24.2 rocks. That's a lot of bread for a non-elite receiver. Samuel's an elite player because he can do different things, but he is not an elite receiver. Trent Williams turns 36 this year. Now, every year I say this guy, age is going to catch up with him, but to his credit, it doesn't, right? Next year, he makes 28 mil. And then in 25 and 26, he is scheduled to make 30 and 34 rocks. Fred Warner, great player, an off-ball linebacker. He's making 24 rocks next year at the age of 28. Now, I say great player, but he's an off-ball linebacker. Bobby Wagner was rated either the number 1 or number 2 off-ball linebacker in the NFL last year for the Rams. And honestly, these linebackers, they are not make or break positions anymore. They're just not. The way the league is set up now, we're not lining up the Mike Lucci's, the Jim Carters, the Harold McClintons, the Ray Nitschke's, the Jack Lamberts, the Mike Curtises, the Willie Laniers. We're not lining up the Jeff Siemens, the Hacksaw Reynolds, the Bill Bergeys. We're not lining these guys up anymore. There was a time you knew who all the middle linebackers were, like when you knew the quarterbacks, because the middle linebacker was the quarterback of the defense. I didn't mention Tommy Novus or Leroy Jordan. There you go. But they're paying, that's just way too much. I know he's good, but I think that's just way too much. And then next year, Dre Greenlaw turns 27, and they're paying him 9.6, and he becomes an unrestricted free agent. He's an off-ball linebacker. Close to $10 million for Dre Greenlaw. And then they're playing Kyle Juszczyk, the Juszczyk. Yeah, the the eye doctor board there that you read, right? Kyle Juszczyk. He turns 33 next year. And they're paying him 7.5 rocks this year. They're paying him 7.5 rocks next year. He's a fullback. I'm sorry. I know he's fan favorite. I know he can do a lot of things, but should you ever pay 7.5 rocks, $7.5 million for a fullback in the NFL? I mean, I just don't get it. And then in 2024, left guard Aaron, what's his name? Is it Bax? What's his name? Banks will be an unrestricted free agent. Jake Brendel, the center, will be 31. Right guard Spencer Buford is graded 67 out of 77 at guard, and right tackle Colton McKivitz will be a free agent. And here's the thing: is McKivitz has never really played before, and he's replacing McGlinchey, who went to was it Denver, right? They're going to need to replenish and take a look at that offensive line. And a lot of these players have a lot of age, and they really need Brock Purdy to be the Brock Purdy who they expect him to be, or the 49ers are going to fall faster than a Jenga tower. And they still didn't get their ring. And Philly's tough this year. And, of course, we know these guys. Already George Kittle, without taking a hit, is not doing well right now. He's kind of banged up. I think it's a hip issue. These things always seem to happen to the 49ers. Their window is closing. I understand signing Bosa, but boy, and we know also that through our history with the Rams that you can make anything work with the salary cap. You just have to, start eating some top ramen for a while instead of some porterhouse steaks. So anyway, moving on. If there's not a good situation, the truth is he can come back to school. The words of Caleb Williams' father. It's almost like they spoke to me, wasn't it? Last week, we talked about how Caleb Williams had all the leverage. It was in his ballpark that he could go back to USC and play. He's going to get NIL money. He could take an insurance policy out, that he should not go to the Cardinals. And I loved how Caleb Williams set it up to where he didn't say it, but his dad said, if there's not a good situation, the truth is he can come back to school. I don't break news here. I'm not in that position to break news, but it's funny the things that you can see coming before they get, just by observation. And I'm not alone on that. If you just love this game, if you just love football, that's why you don't have to depend on all the professionals to tell you this. You figured this out before they did. If there's not a good situation, Caleb Williams' dad says, the truth is he can come back to school, and the Arizona Cardinals are not a good situation. They're not a good situation, and I love it. I think it's great. I hope Caleb Williams throws for 70 touchdown passes, rewrites every record in the book, and then says, you know what, I kind of like college. I like being here at USC. He can do what he wants. I love NIL, right? NIL might really save these athletes more than just in terms of making them money, but it might save them and give them the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm making a little bit of bread here. I can stay in school. All right. After my rant yesterday against the Steelers, listener XG1335 says, weren't you a little hard on Steeler fan Rob from Missouri yesterday? I can't believe this guy. It's probably Steeler fan Rob. There he is. Oh my gosh. I hope this wasn't you. XG1335. Was I a little hard on Steeler fan Rob yesterday? Hey, I am praising the Steelers. I'm praising the Steelers. I think the Steelers have the potential to be great this year. And I thought this back in the spring, even before their draft and then after their draft. Steeler fan Rob constantly hounds me about how much the Rams suck because of the time difference. He's texting me before the sun comes up out here in LA about every stupid theory regarding the Rams. Matthew Stafford's going to go play for the Cowboys just to yank my chain. So yesterday I said to Steeler fan Rob, you better beat the 49ers. And they should beat the 49ers. But if they don't, if they swallow the jalapeno, then Steeler fan Rob needs to admit that his team is good, but not great. You should beat the 49ers. Steeler fan Rob, I know you're out there watching right now. You should beat the 49ers because their window is closing. You're absolutely right. Their window is closing, and they don't got one of these. Well, they might have a wedding ring, but you know what kind of rock I'm talking about. Okay, score prediction, Rams-Seahawks. Yeah, I'll give it on Friday. I don't do spreads. I know we got new listeners, new watchers, new followers, so I just wanted to share that right now. I don't do any kind of gambling type thing. I'll tell you who I think is going to win. But I don't do point spreads. And believe it or not, folks, here's the reason why is I don't know how. I don't know how to do it, honestly, how to read a betting line. I have to ask my friends or others because I don't understand. Take the points. I got the dog. I got the over. I understand overs and unders and all that. But I also wanted to say, I know what you guys know what my day job is, right? It's not my faith stepping in between and trying to make some kind of judgment about you who do bet. Okay. It's none of my business. But what it really is was a lack of dough growing up. We didn't have the scratch or chump change to do that kind of stuff. And also I'll say it around this because I was a Ram fan. There was no way I could make a smart choice betting because I always bet with my heart when it came to the Rams, or I would bet with my heart when it came to the Rams. And so, yeah, I'll give you a score prediction on Friday, but just to get everyone a heads up, and I know that might hurt me with sponsors down the road, but I just don't do the gambling betting stuff because I don't know it. And if you heard me reading a card that says, hey, get all your offshore bet, all that kind of stuff, Vegas says, I might say what Vegas says, but I'll never say, oh, I like that action because I don't know. I know you're the home team. You're supposed to get 3 points or something. Whatever. It's not my bag. I'm just letting you know in advance. Okay, getting to some Ram news here. Cooper Kupp is out for Sunday, and they say a trip to the IR is not unlikely. And I say put him on the IR for a month. Put him on the sooner the better. Let him miss those 4 games, and bring him back week 5. Let him even miss Indy. I think the Rams can win in Indy without Cooper Kupp. And so let him rest. We're going to need him the back half of the season. And again, I project the Rams going 0-3 to start the season and a win in Indy to go 1-3. But let's keep Kupp healthy. He's not going to make a difference against Frisco, Seattle, or Cincy these first 3 weeks of the season anyway. So let's put him on the IR for 4 games, right? And just a reminder, I don't want to depress Ram fans much, but Ram fans need to know we've been blessed to have Cooper Kupp, 3rd round pick. He's been fantastic, right? Incredible everything, all retire his jersey. Love Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's turning 30 with a knee injury and some other issues that have popped up. The ankle last year, the hamstring this year. He's 30. Football players with a lot of mileage begin to show that mileage when they turn 30. I know he works out, and I know a lot of those guys work out, and they're better now in all the training and everything. But just trying to keep that reality in front of Ram fans that as everyone talks about the Rams drafting a quarterback next year, maybe they need to focus maybe on an edge rusher, and then maybe possibly a high-end receiver, another number 1. So anyway, depth chart was released. It's interesting, but I looked at PFF this morning and kind of just looks the same as what the Rams released. The note boom, the Alaric Jackson thing is still up for grabs according to what the Rams released at left tackle. PFF actually listed note boom as the starter at left tackle, and before they were listing Alaric Jackson. Both they listed Coleman Shelton at center. The Rams still were ambiguous between Coleman Shelton and Brian Allen. PFF had Shelton starting at center. Ankrum, both depth charts had Ankrum at right guard. And of course, that Rob Havenstein guy. And then what was the other one there? The other one was interesting is Russ Yeast. The Rams have Russ Yeast starting ahead of John Johnson, which I don't have a problem with. I think John Johnson's going to get on the field. Unless barring some health thing, he's going to get on the field. And with the defensive line and the defensive players, ultimately it's about snaps and when you're getting your snaps, right? You love it when you see the defensive linemen, a lot of them getting a lot of snaps. You want Aaron Donald getting the most snaps, but when you see a good rotation, and the Rams for a while there had a great rotation, and we don't know what we have right now in Bobby Brown. We think we do a little bit. And we think we do we drafted Kobe Turner high. Desjuan Johnson's played well. Larrell Murchison made the team. I didn't expect that. And the Rams chose Jonah Williams over Marquise Copeland. So I'm anxious to see what the Rams got on this defensive line. And it's about snaps. You want to go back and you want to look at the snaps Sunday night, Monday morning, and see how it looks and how they graded out. And like I said yesterday, I stick by what I said. I think the back porch, I think ultimately John Johnson is going to be on the field. But but the safeties are good. I believe the cornerbacks are going to be competitive. I like Ernest Jones in the middle of the field. We have no rush right now. As far as we know right now, there is no edge, but hopefully with Aaron Donald eating up space or grabbing attention on that D line, that could free up Michael Hoyt or Byron Young. But the player that I think is just key is Bobby Brown. And if Bobby Brown can be the guy at 3 spins, if he could be the guy that runs that zero over the center, that fills the gap, that really plugs the hole, that is just that space eater, I think that'll just do a world of good for Aaron Donald and the Rams front seven in general. So wanted to get that out there. Around the NFL, still hanging around. I'm going to say it until I hear anything different. Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Jarvis Landry, Kenny Golladay are all available. It's funny that Jarvis Landry and Kenny Golladay are still available, but Robbie Anderson signed with the Miami Dolphins practice squad. And Robbie Anderson, the former Jet, former Panther, former Cardinal. He's 30 now. Last time we really saw him in LA, he was arguing with Panthers interim head coach Steve Wilkes, and he looked awful in the process, and I think Wilkes ran him off the field. I just wouldn't sign. I'm glad we didn't think about signing Robbie Anderson. But I wonder about Jarvis Landry or Kenny Golladay if Kupp does go on the IR. Okay, we got Nick Bosa signed. We know that. George Kittle's got a hip issue. Tayshaun Gibson had a great year at free safety for the 49ers last year at the age of 32. He's 33 now. He's got a lot of mileage on him. He really resurrected his career enough where they can send Jimmy Ward out of town. Jimmy Ward, I think, is in Houston now playing for D'Amico Ryan. But Tayshaun Gibson missed practice. They think he's giving him some rest. But again, you just heard everything I read about the 49ers. Now you add their free safety, Tayshaun Gibson there. He's 33. Yeah, that window. I think Steeler fan Rob in Missouri and I can agree on that for sure. Looking at everything else, the Raiders restructured Jimmy Garoppolo's contract to give them some space this year. Nothing looking like Chris Jones is going to sign anytime soon. Travis Kelce, bone bruise, was hyperextended knee, bone bruise. So he's questionable for tomorrow night, which makes it really interesting. I mentioned Robbie Anderson and the Buccaneers. No, not really. He played for the Buccaneers. Carl Nassib, defensive lineman with the Browns. He kind of came to attention when the Browns were on Hard Knocks. He got cut, bounced around, and he became the first openly gay player in the NFL. He announced it when he was with the Raiders. He announced his retirement officially after 7 years this week. And first openly gay guy to play in the NFL. He'll likely be the first openly gay guy to be in a broadcast booth very, very soon because everyone likes to be the first, right? I didn't care about Carl Nassib that much. I had no opinion about him either way. But it did fry me a little bit when the whole John Gruden thing broke. Remember they came out and they just went scorched earth on John Gruden, right? He's sexist. He's a racist. Remember? John Gruden, a racist. John Gruden might be a jackwagon. He doesn't know how to build the team and maybe out of touch in terms how to win as a head coach these days. But John Gruden's not a racist. But the NFL had an agenda. We know that the NFL had an agenda, and they labeled Gruden, 750,000 emails, and he's the only email that they had anything sexist, racist, or homophobic. Well, all the African-American players showed up for work the next day, but Carl Nassib, as the one gay guy, had to decide that he needed to take some time off and heal. If I'm a black guy and I'm upset because my coach is doing that and I show up for work, you get your butt to work. And so I lost all respect for Carl Nassib. I don't think much of him in terms of being a player of character. I hope he has a great life. I hope he's successful, whatever he does. But yeah, that was one of my things that really bugged me. It's like, hey, wait a second. I'm Josh Jacobs, and you're telling me my coach is this, but I show up for work the next day. 75% of my team is African-American, and we show up for work. But Carl Nassib gets to take the day off because he needs to figure some things out because he's hurt. Get out of town. Get out of town. Speaking of getting out of town, Jake Haener was high on the Rams list, apparently, the Fresno State quarterback, but he was grabbed by the Saints, which led to the Rams rushing to grab Stetson Bennett because it looked like a rush was going to begin on the quarterbacks. Well, the Saints got Jake Haener, and Jake Haener got suspended for 6 games for PED violation by the NFL. And so he's out the first 6 weeks of his rookie year for the Saints. Okay, Thursday night game, it's still in Kansas City. Kansas City is still without Kelsey and Chris Jones, and the feeling is you want to go with them because they're the world champs and it's in Arrowhead. I totally get it. But those Lions players love their head coach. They play with a lot of energy. So I'm going to go Detroit on a lark and say 37-31. If you can't get a pass rush, Karlaftis, the former Purdue guy, some of those other guys, they better get on Jared Goff. And the way you get Jared Goff is coming up the middle. And that Detroit offensive line is really solid. Their OC is amazing, Ben Johnson. He's got weapons on the outside, including former Ram Josh Reynolds. He's got Amari Rogers. Amari St. Brown, I'm sorry. He's got guys out there. And then on top of that, he's got David Montgomery at running back and Jamar Gibbs, who I'm excited about seeing. He's got weapons. Penei Sewell's guarding his blind side. This is a really exciting Detroit team, and they might have just enough to outshoot the Detroit Lions. And so I'm going to go Lions 37, Chiefs 31. We'll break it down on Friday, and so looking forward to seeing that. Okay, let's get to the Kistler Law question of the day. I broke this down. The Rams have only 2 number 1 picks on their current 53-man roster. Just 2. You know who they are? I'm going to answer it for you. Aaron Donald and Matthew Stafford, right? Matthew Stafford, of course, number 1 overall. But only two players on the entire 53-man roster were drafted number 1. So the question is, what acquisition slot, what slot, other slot makes up the most of the rest of the Rams roster? Okay. You only got 2 first rounders. Do you have more 5th rounders, 3rd rounders, 7th rounders? What do you have? And so that's the question for today. The question for today is what acquisition slot makes up the most of the rest of the Rams roster? If they've only got 2 number 1 picks out of the 53 on the roster, what makes up the most of the rest of the roster? Does that make sense? Are there mostly 5th rounders, 3rd rounders? And so is it A, 3rd rounders? Is it B, 5th rounders? Is it C, 4th rounders? D, 7th rounders? Or E, 6th rounders? Okay, we'll give you that answer at the end of the show. Okay, commercial time. I'm Joe Terosian, and I get to do RamView, and I write books, and I do RamView thanks to our sponsors at our sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto Repair. And I do write books, and this allows me to do my day job as well, to pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene. And we have an online presence at Burbank Faith Virtual, which is right here on YouTube, Facebook. You can find us our website where you can see all of our videos and stuff. It's a great website, but it needs more content on there. So you can check us out there. And so that's what I do. So I can do RamView. I'm very blessed to do RamView. I was a sports writer for 21 years, still am kind of, and worked at Mid-Valley Sports. I was one of the founding members there. Those guys are covering the NFL through the San Diego Chargers right now, and I get to talk about the Rams. So we're all winners here. Okay, wanted to get the commercial in there. If you have any questions about me, feel free to ask. And one of my favorite things to say is your opinion is valuable, as long as it doesn't come from a sports bar. There's the guy that Rams lose and it's fire McVay, trade Stafford. That's not really a take. But there's a lot of you out there that maybe never got paid to talk about sports or write sports. I was blessed. I got to do that. And you know what we discovered? There's a lot of people out there who know just as much as we do. All right. And you have ability to observe. You have observation skills. You know what you're seeing, and you have a right to an opinion. And guys like us have a tendency to make other people feel stupid. Well, it won't happen here. And so just share what you want to share, as long as it's smart. Make a smart case. And I'm happy to disagree with you or agree with you, but I won't dismiss you. I won't dismiss you unless you're Steeler fan, Rob, telling me that Matthew Stafford is going to get traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Okay. All right. Let's get to the back half of the show here. My college football top 8, based on what I've seen, no change today. We'll see how I feel tonight. Maybe I'll have a flashback and try to change things. But right now, just based on who I've seen, Utah, USC, Notre Dame, Colorado, Florida State. Although I think Florida State, I heard somebody say Florida State might be a playoff team, and not with Jordan Travis. I don't believe in Jordan Travis in the long run. Washington at 6, North Carolina at 7, and Fresno State, the alma mater of the PED suspended Jake Haener, at number 8. Okay, on this date in Ram history, on September 6th, the Rams waived punter Pat Studstill. Pat Studstill had been a Rams punter from 1968 through 1971. He was cut in favor of Arcadia's own Dave Chappell. Does anyone remember Dave Chappell? Actually had a really good year for the Rams in 72. Was okay in 73, was gone by 74. But Studstill had actually, when he was with the Detroit Lions, had been a Pro Bowl receiver. In 1966, he caught 67 passes. He only caught 181 in his career, only 38 with the Rams. He was mainly a punter with the Rams. But on this day in 1972, the Rams released him. On this day in 1976, the Rams released the very popular Al Clark. Al Clark is one of my favorite Ram players of all time because in the Rams' 37-31 win over the Cowboys at the Coliseum, October 14th, 1973, the Harold Jackson game where he caught 4 touchdown passes and absolutely torched Charlie Waters so bad they needed dental records to identify him on the field. The Cowboys launched a comeback, and it was halted when Al Clark picked off Roger Staubach late. So I always had an affection for Al Clark, wore number 44. Well, on this day, 4 years later, in 1976, the Rams released the very popular Al Clark. They also released Al Cowlings, the former USC guy. We talked about him last week. And Jack Snow. It came down to Dwight Scales and Freeman Johns, and the Rams kept the younger receivers, and Jack Snow was put out to pasture. He only played 10 games in 1975, and because he had lost his job, Ron Jesse was in town. But he had been a starter his whole career, played 11 seasons, missed only 4 games in 1975. That's all he missed. Played in 150 games. He went to St. Anthony High School, and I knew people that went to high school with Jack Snow. In fact, I think one of them was a coach, Rat Dog John Gillette, and he said they were telling us Jack Snow in high school was saying, "I'm going to play football for the Rams," and he ended up playing football for the Rams. In his career, he caught 340 passes for 45 touchdowns. He only had a 51 catch season once, and he only went to 1 Pro Bowl. But think about this: this was the 2 starting backs in the backfield, 3 yards in a cloud of dust era. You know, he wasn't playing in the AFL. He was playing in the NFL. He caught 340 passes, which is significant. Back in those days, if you caught 40 passes in a year, it was a big deal. But Jack Snow averaged 17.7 yards per catch in his career. He was an effective receiver. In fact, I still have memories of hearing Dick Enberg call the 1974 Rams-Vikings game at the Coliseum, and the Rams came back and won that, and they won it on a pass from Jack Snow, from James Harris to Jack Snow in the corner of the end zone, and he catches it with one hand, and you could just hear the Coliseum erupt. That's when listening to the radio was special. So I got a thing for Jack Snow. He played at Notre Dame, caught 60 passes his senior year in 1964. His quarterback was John Huerte, who ended up having a pretty good college career. And then Snow was drafted in the first round, 8th overall by the Minnesota Vikings. That's when the draft was held, early December, late November in those days. And this was before the Common Era draft. And then he was traded a month later to the Rams for a former All-Pro receiver, Jim Red Phillips, and a 10th round defensive lineman named Gary Larson, who played football up in one of the small Minnesota schools. And the Rams sent them both. And the Vikings sent Jack Snow to the Rams. Larson played 10 years for the Vikings, made a Pro Bowl. He was a key member of the Purple People Eaters there with Carl Eller, Alan Page, Jim Marshall. I think he eventually lost his job to Doug Sutherland, but he had a really nice career. Red Phillips. Here's the thing about Jim Red Phillips for the Rams. He's lost name in history. He was a 5th overall pick in 1958 from Auburn. And he ended up playing in 3 Pro Bowls for the Rams from 1960 to 62. Caught 78 passes. I knew he was good, but I didn't know he was this good. He caught 78 passes in 1961, and that was before Roman Gabriel, folks. That was Zeke Bretkowski years, right? And he caught 333 passes in his career, 401 total. Only 68 with the Vikings. He played a couple years with the Vikings and then he retired. But I thought it was important to get that in there. And then, of course, Jack Snow. Jack Snow played 11 years for the Rams, became a broadcaster for the Rams, kind of a heavy smoker, entered the hospital in 2006 or late 2005 with a staph infection. And he died at the age of 62 as a young man. His son was JT Snow, played for the Angels and won a World Series. I think, did he win a World Series? No, he didn't win a World Series with the Giants, but he was with that Giant team that lost to the Angels in the World Series. But Jack Snow, huh? Jack Snow, maybe our prehistoric Cooper Kupp right there, right? Great player and great Ram. Good thing to remember him. Okay, on this date in 1982, the Rams released Frank Corral, Jairo Penaranda out of UCLA. Frank Corral, good guy. And then they also released Miles McPherson, defensive back, who went on to become a pretty successful preacher. Solid preacher, too, from what I remember. Tomorrow is September 7th. And since we're not going to be on the air tomorrow, it is the anniversary of the 1967 trade for Roger Brown from the Detroit Lions. Rosie Greer, after the 66 season, he hurt himself. He was going down. He wasn't going to play in 67. He was on the IR. So the Rams made a move and took Roger Brown, who had spent 7 seasons with the Detroit Lions. This guy was a 6-time Pro Bowler, twice All-Pro, made 1 Pro Bowl with the Rams. And his size for the 1960s was huge. His size was 6'5", 300 pounds. That's a size that translates to today's game. So that lets you know how big he was. He had 79 career sacks, unofficial, of course. 15 and a half with the Rams, never missed a game playing in the trenches his 10 seasons, went on to be a pretty good, successful restaurateur, entrepreneur, that kind of stuff. Roger Brown was a great player. I don't know if he's quite Hall of Fame, but maybe he should have got some thought. Again, playing in Detroit in the 60s and the Rams teams that didn't quite get over the hump, you kind of get lost in the process there. One interesting thing, Roger Brown came to my attention when I was a kid, because if you ever see the movie Paper Lion, that's the Alan Alda playing George Plimpton. Paper Lion, I think that came out in 69, 68. It's about, George Plimpton. No one remembers him. He was the sports writer of the day back in the 70s, 60s, and 50s and stuff. But George Plimpton had a tryout with the Detroit Lions. They made a movie out of it. And trying to show how hard the NFL is, they showed how close Roger Brown was to Alex Karras, Mike Lucci. Lem Barney was a rookie in that movie. And then they come into a team meeting and they announce that Roger Brown has been traded to the Rams. And it's kind of like supposed to show you how gritty the NFL is. And it was true. He was traded to the Rams. Very interesting scene. So that's how I always knew who Roger Brown was. Okay, we're hitting the 37-minute mark. Getting ready to wrap this up. Looking at the Rams-Seahawks, haven't given my final opinion. But if you're going to match them up by position, quarterbacks, Geno versus Stafford, I'm going Stafford. Running backs, I'm going to go Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet over the Rams. Wide receivers, I'm going with the Seahawks. Tight end, Noah Fant, I'm going with the Seahawks. Offensive line, even though the offensive line for the Seahawks was impressive last year, you know what? I like the Rams offensive line. I think the Rams offensive line is going to be better than people think. Maybe a little shaky at first, but I think it's going to be better than they think. So I give the Rams an edge. If Alaric Jackson is playing and even Joe Noble are playing to their potential along with Rob Havenstein, I like our tackles better than Cross and Lucas, the second-year tackles for the Seahawks. I'm going to go with the Rams guards. Steve Avila, I'm leaning on him. And I'm going to go with the Rams center, whoever it is, Brian Allen or Coleman Shelton. Evan Brown is a middle-of-the-road center that they brought in from the Lions. They're hoping it's going to be an upgrade for them, but they're vulnerable there. And so I'm going to lean Rams all across the offensive line. Defensive line, hey, my defensive line has Aaron Donald. What does yours have? Okay, Rams win that one. But Seahawks win the edge. Seahawks win the defensive backs at corner and safety. With Bobby Wagner, they win at linebacker. And because the Rams are going with Alex Ward, Brent Maher, and Ethan Evans, all pretty much rookies and journeymen now in their special teams, I'm giving the special teams to the Seahawks. And so right now that's kind of like an 8-5 position battle advantage for the Seahawks. But here's the interesting thing. Sean McVay all-time against Pete Carroll is 8-5. And there's another interesting note. Did you know Sean McVay is 3-0 against NFC West teams in the playoffs, right? In In 2020, they beat the Cardinals. In 2021, of course, they beat the 49ers to go to the I'm sorry, in 2021, they beat the Cardinals. 2020, they beat the Seahawks. And in 2021, they beat the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. Thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, answer to the trivia question for today. Let's get back up there. I got to scroll back to the top. Okay, trivia question for the day. The Rams have a 53-man roster, as you know. Okay, Rams got a 53-man roster. And only 2 of those men on the 53-man roster are what we would say first-round draft picks. Matthew Stafford, of course, with the Lions, but he's a first-round draft pick. Aaron Donald, of course, first-round draft pick. So my question was, which slot makes up the most of the rest of the roster? Third-rounders, fifth-rounders, fourth-rounders, okay? So what acquisition slot makes up the most of the rest of the Rams 53-man roster, okay? Was it A, third-rounders, B, fifth-rounders, C, fourth-rounders, D, seventh-rounders, E, sixth-rounders, okay? Well, I'll give it to you, okay? In the second round, the Rams have 5 players that were drafted in the second round. Various teams, but most of them are on our team, were drafted by the Rams. Rams have 5 second-rounders. The Rams have 6 seventh-rounders, okay? The Rams have 7 sixth-rounders, 7 fifth-rounders, 8 fourth-rounders, and 8 third-rounders. So you're saying that their 8 third-rounders is the correct answer, right? Well, you're wrong. The actual, it was a trick question. The answer is the Rams have 10 undrafted free agents on their roster. 10 out of the 53. More than any slotted draft choice, first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round. The Rams have 10 undrafted free agents on their roster. And in fact, let me take a look at it and see who's actually projected here. Michael Hoyt, Christian Roseman, according to the depth chart right now, second linebacker. Let's see, who else do we have here? Alaric Jackson, Coleman Shelton. All these guys are undrafted free agents. And so Rams have 10 undrafted free agents on their roster. I know that was kind of a trick question, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was cool. It was a stone groove. And how come everyone clicks on when I'm ready to click off? Guys, thank you so much for clicking on. But I really overextended my stay, 42 minutes. Don't be mad at me about the trivia question, but we'll go from there. Be sure to rewind and go back and check it out. And we're going to get this posted all over social media. If you could check us out and follow us on Spotify, I would really appreciate it, as well as hitting like and subscribe here. And, of course, leave comments. I love to try to answer questions. If I can answer them well, that would be awesome. If I don't answer them well, then you can take a shot at me, as Steeler fan Rob likes to take a shot at me all the time. Okay, folks, God bless. Take care. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. And we'll be back on Friday to talk about the Lions beating the Chiefs 37-31. You heard it here first. And then, of course, Sunday's action. God bless. Take care. We'll see you soon.